Welcome back, everybody. I don't know, I know some of you have been able to join us for most of the day. So feel free as we go into the conversation to kind of do callbacks if you see. But, I think I am just going to jump right in and maybe ask as we get started. As I give you your very first question, please use that as an opportunity. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what kind of trouble you're up to, what kind of trouble you fend off, and what brought you today. We're just going to jump in with everybody. Tell me your favorite cyber pioneer or scientist. Go. All right, Jason, I saw you catch the ball. You get to go first.
All right, I caught it. I'm going with Sir Tim Berners-Lee as a popular and awesome choice. My reason, he was in a position to control a lot of what he did, and he chose to let it be free to the world. And I think that's a pretty awesome reason for his behavior and why I chose him.
That's a very awesome reason and kind of a nice spirit, I think, to go into some of our conversations this afternoon. I like that choice. Okay, now I'm just going to call on people since Jason caught the first ball. Ryan.
Hey guys, how's it going? So I picked for mine the Twitter personality Swift-on Security. So for those that don't know who this is, they're an amazing technologist that combines a Taylor Swift personality. Who knows if it really is Taylor Swift? It might be, for all we know. Plus, as you mentioned, Donna, that irreverent comedy and humor, fantastic technology resources, and a bigger than life personality is an awesome combination in a cyber professional. So hard to pick anyone else.
Oh, that's a great choice. Hey, Jeff, we're going to serpentine just around. Who comes to mind for you?
Somebody that no one's ever heard of, actually, but somebody I know personally that has a couple of patents. Guy named Bob Bozen, but back in the 1980s, he kind of pioneered the field, the identity or multi-factor authentication field that I'm in today and have been enjoying for the last 25 years. So I knew him personally. I actually got some cool mechanisms from back in the 80s, some authentication devices from him when he retired. But he's got several patents on the technology. He invented devices like this, algorithms for technologies that create one-time passcodes. So he's sort of my hero just because he gave me a job that I have today.
Oh, that's awesome. And I kind of want, can you bring the device a little closer to the camera? What is that?
That is oh, hold on, gotta see. So it is some very old-timey authenticator. And can you see it, or
yeah, that works.
I get it closer. Works. There you go. If I put it on my forehead, it almost works. Okay, there you go. I think I can see it now. See, it's got a little slot for a key that I don't have. I don't know what kind of battery it goes in it because they don't make them anymore. And it's got a little LED screen somewhere, or the keys here, actually, the LED screen or LCD screen, because this is an 80s technology, right? Goes there, and I think you type in a key and it produces, and you put this key in and it produces a code there. But it's a form of one-time passcode technology. It's not anything like we're using today, but he was a pioneer in this stuff and owned several patents in regards to these devices and the technology behind generating these. They were actually calling them portable passwords. Doesn't seem very portable if you compare it to our today's technology. It is completely different. So anyway.
That's wonderful. I love that you held on to it for that long.
I had to find it.
How about you, Joseph? Are you there? Do we have you?
Yeah,
muted?
Sorry.
Yeah, it's no problem at all.
So kind of with Jeff, I'm gonna, my mentor was really a gentleman, that I was lucky to meet. His name is Arshad Noor. He's kind of behind the scenes and creating PKI algorithms, and he's super well respected. I had the pleasure of getting my security start working under him directly right after he left Sun, and then we worked on some of the largest global PKI deployments. he also is a big open source, contributor. He contributed an open source key management protocol that's actually being leveraged by, various military agencies in the US and Canada and in South America. So Arshad Noor is probably the guy that I can really, bond with from a personal perspective, as well as somebody that inspired me to get into security and crypto, kind of where I'm at today. So, yep, that's my guy.
I love that.
Yeah.
How about yours, Chloe?
Hey, so I picked Ada Lovelace, had to pick a woman. She was a mathematician and writer back in the 1800s. Can't imagine how hard it was to do math back then before graphing calculators. But she wrote one of the first algorithms that was meant to be run by a machine. So they sort of consider her one of the first computer programmers, which is super cool. Yeah.
That is super cool. I love that. And I would kind of go right alongside you with maybe Hedy Lamarr, who I think, we don't always think of as a rather early and illustrious film star, but also inventor of some of the most amazing technologies that led us to a lot of the communications technologies we have today. So Hedy Lamarr gives kind of a different face entirely to what we think of as our cybersecurity professionals, for sure. We've given ourselves, and I've been watching a little bit our participant numbers. So we've had some more folks as we were doing that round to join us from lunch. So as we go into this next question, I'm going to ask you guys, give us a little bit of where you're coming from, just a bit of an intro as you answer the question, what is the security poverty line? And it's really a key piece of why we've joined together here today. As we think about individuals who are not necessarily part of the everyday digital ecosystems that we have today and are having more and more ways to join us in these conversations, whether that's a diversity of backgrounds. Recent, ASU over the summer brought in a number of Afghanistan refugees, brand new entrants into the state of Arizona, restarting lives, a really interesting point in their own journeys. I think about really diverse sets of individuals who are coming into these ecosystems and how we serve them. So as we think about that, how would you guys define the security poverty line? And could you tell us a little bit about who you are and what gives you that definition? I think we'll go in reverse order. And Chloe, I'll ask you to go first.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So my name is Chloe Medosh. I work on the public sector team at Cloudflare. I work on our customer success team. So my job is really working with local, state, federal government in using Cloudflare technology and getting set up. So we, when we think of, and when I think of what the security poverty line means, that's really around, who has access to the information and the resources that you need to keep yourself and your family secure in a world that is so connected to the internet and so many things that you do. We think everyone should have a right to access to the internet and access security of your information and your data. So in my role, that really sort of comes down to working with local governments and helping make sure that services like your taxes or elections or any vital stuff that's a part of your daily life is secure, and that security is sort of passed down to citizens as well. I think on to you, Joe.
I have to agree. That's kind of in line with what we're doing. I mean, really, going back, sorry, I back up a little bit. My name is Joe Betancourt. I've been with Talis, before that, Gemalto, and then SafeNet, as through acquisitions. And I've always been involved in the encryption side, the backroom crypto key management piece. And this is something new for us. And it's, when I was asked to be part of the public sector team and learn about the project that Ryan's doing with Arizona, I was just so excited because that's a big topic for me, right? It's always about education, educating everyone on what's out there, what they should avoid. I have a young daughter, I have kids, so monitoring what's on the internet, that kind of stuff, and really making them understand, when they're accessing certain things, what is key, and how do you protect yourself, and what tools do you have that can protect yourself? So, going back to what Ryan's doing with the, I'll let him talk about it, what he's doing. It's just amazing, and Talis was so excited to be part of the program and partnering with him and his entire team. And, Jeff and I have been going out and just educating folks. We're having conversations with folks that don't even have smartphones. They don't even, understanding what an OTP token is, or, MFA is. So I think the program is fantastic. And, it comes down to education. And I think this is a great path forward.
I'm going to go out of order. And Brian, with that intro, I feel like you need to share with us, what you're doing at the state and how you're directly addressing this issue.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk a little bit more as we get kind of further down the stack of some of the questions and what role government and industry play in this digital equity and data privacy conversation. But realistically, so for ththose that don't know, I'm Ryan Murray. I'm the Deputy Director for the Arizona Department of Homeland Security and Deputy State CISO. The conversation mentioned by Joe is we're running a program to provide cyber readiness capabilities to essentially all local governments across the entire state. And we'll talk a little bit more details on that, but Talis, Cloudflare, I saw Tanium in the chat, and CrowdStrike are all amazing partners in this program, helping us to provide these capabilities. And I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. To me, that's what the cyber poverty line really rubber hits the road, is we're seeing these small local governments, these rural communities that barely have internet, let alone the capabilities to protect themselves from sophisticated cyber attacks, whether that's from the criminal element, from nation state actors, hacktivists, whatever that looks like. Going out and talking to these communities that are trying to provide these critical government services, just don't have the capabilities, one, to really digitize and modernize those services, or two, to protect them from the cyber criminal elements. And I think kind of tying back to what Joe mentioned, there's this big assumption that all these services need to be modernized and digitized. But then when you go out and talk to some of the rural communities and some of the smaller cities and towns, they don't have reliable internet. They don't have smart devices. So how do you provide these modern services to communities that aren't really in an equitable location for digital inclusion? And then tying that all kind of back to you've got the digital inclusion conversation, you've got staying safe online, and then cybersecurity are all kind of this three overlapping Venn diagram that I know that Jason's going to talk a little bit more about as we talk about staying safe online, but trying to figure out the nice sweet spot in the middle there of how we're pulling all these things together to really raise the bar and uplift all these communities that don't really have the capabilities to do this themselves.
We could spend the whole afternoon really digging into all of this stuff. These conversations are so important. Jeff, I skipped you, so I'd like to bring back, kind of go back into the order that we had before.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed thinking that, I've been upstaged by Ryan Murray, but it won't be the first time. But that's okay. So one of the major things that my company does, Talis, is provide user identities. And we provide it to not only companies and organizations and school districts or whatever, but we're doing this for countries. Your passport, if you have a USA passport, has some kind of a digital identity inside of there that identifies you to the TSA when you go through one of those checkpoint lines. If you have a credit card that has a smart chip on it, that is your digital security for transactions that going to Costco and swiping that card. That is your digital identity security for that. The new Real ID driver's license that they're making everybody get, those have a digital identity in them, and we're supplying many of the states with that. But across the world, countries, rail entities, they're all using our technology to provide any and every user, regardless of their level of revenue, income, with a personal identity that's going to protect them in their day-to-day transactions, in the day-to-day things that they do. So I think that's a big contributor to allowing every person of every income level to be protected, and not only online stuff, but going to the grocery store, the things that we all need to do every day.
Jason, I
I'm
think that
sorry,
was
I
you.
forgot to say who I was, didn't I? I so apologize. I'm Jeff Hooper. I'm with Talus.
Hey,
I've
Jeff.
been doing this for 23 some odd years. I'm considered, because I've been around so long, a subject matter expert on our authentication products. And now I'll stop talking. So thank you.
No, not at all. All right, Jason, over to you.
So yeah, I'm Jason Edelstein, manager of customer assurance at CrowdStrike. I am someone who talks to people who want to know how CrowdStrike does things securely. So I actually kind of consider myself to be a digital trust or digital trust adjacent professional. Talk to everyone, every sector, national, international, state, local. As you've seen, we've partnered with a lot of folks. And everyone else has done a great job defining digital poverty line. So I'll only add one thing, which is it's terribly expensive to be poor. The digital poverty line is not a single barrier that you pass by getting enough resources. It's a system that you have to overcome. So when we look at things like what Ryan and the others are talking about, it's about elevating and finding where we need to meet people so that we get them the right resources to overcome that system.
Jason, I really appreciate that. And I wonder if I couldn't ask you to speak a little bit more and maybe share with us, in what you've encountered from your role, and just personally, what do you think are the biggest roadblocks that we do need to overcome?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, because you see very different levels of inquiry, maturity, needs from different places. So you'll have individuals that are asking very complicated, sophisticated questions, enterprise level. What kind of encryption algorithms are you using? How do you send information? What are your lawyers saying about privacy policies? And then you have other groups, individuals who are basically fending for themselves. They don't have the resources to ask the questions to really then spread that knowledge around internally. And that's not their fault. And I'm not trying to assign blame. What I'm saying is they don't have the ability to cultivate that judgment. They're outmanned, outgunned, overwhelmed. So trying to meet people where they are and bring up, the rising tide floats all boats kind of thing. That's the common theme across all organizations that I've seen in my role in talking with everyone from the smallest, customers who are looking to secure retail operations to very large customers and even perhaps states.
And so Ryan, maybe this is a good time to pick back up the thread that I think Joe started dropping and then you picked up. When we look across that diversity of either individuals and where they're coming from, or organizations and where they're coming from, how would you describe what the state is trying to do to really put together some solutions for that?
Yeah, so something that we're really pushing forward with is that we recognize that not all government entities are created the same. They're not funded the same. They don't have the same capabilities and resources. So what we're trying to do is essentially utilize both the economies of scale and buying power of the state of Arizona, as well as the technical capabilities and support resources at the state of Arizona to provide the high-powered cyber tools that we use out to everyone across the entire state, all local governments, all K through 12 school districts, helping them to protect themselves at the same level that we would be protecting the state agencies and some of the bigger entities, bigger cities and counties across the state. So how that looks, and if you want, I can start talking about the cyber readiness program that I sort of briefly talked about, is that we've got 5 service offerings that we're providing at no cost to all of our local government partners across the entire state. As mentioned, Cloudflare is one of these partners, providing our web application firewalling and DDoS protection for websites and a bunch of other stuff. Talus is providing identity and access management and multi-factor authentication and a bunch of other stuff. CrowdStrike is providing our EDR and MDR solution. Tanium is providing what they call converged endpoint management. So managing all those endpoints from an asset management perspective, from a policy enforcement perspective, deploying software, et cetera, et cetera. We're also providing security awareness training as a package, and phishing campaign testing. And the final product, let's see, we've got Talus, CrowdStrike, Cloudflare, Tanium, and our security awareness training. So that's all 5. And again, we're providing these at no additional cost to all of the government entities across the entire state. We're looking to prioritize those with the greatest need and greatest risk. And then, of course, those that are interested in partnering with the state. So the smaller, more rural communities, those that don't have the resources to buy these capabilities or these resources for themselves, those that have been attacked or had cyber attacks or incidents in the past. We know that cyber criminals and nation state actors will continue to go after the most vulnerable in our communities, especially those that have been attacked previously, because 9 times out of 10, they're reeling and they're on their back feet just trying to respond to these incidents and don't have the time and effort and resources to fix what was attacked in the first place. So we're trying to put all this together as a statewide cyber program, utilizing all of our industry partners to try to make a difference across the state.
And that's incredible. I think seeing these, like, how do you construct that partnership, and how do you make it then available and real for the constituencies that you're trying to reach out to? We talk a lot about the need to do that, but then the actual design or the work that you have to do to make that happen, I think is really interesting. Chloe, I might ask you to start, because you're diagonal from Ryan in my little setup here. At Cloudflare, what do you guys like? How do you approach the opportunity that the state's trying to create a structure for?
Yeah, happy to talk through that. And we've been fortunate to work with the state for a number of years. So we're very lucky in that we sort of already have, these relationships and an understanding of what's important to the state and what specific policies they've built around this. So from the vendor perspective in Cloudflare, a lot of this has been focused on collaboration, of course, with these other industry partners who are here. So not just sort of designing processes in a silo, but working with everyone to design these in a way that, isn't sort of overwhelming all of the entities who are a part of the program, putting together things like training and support resources, and then, lining those up in a way that they can access them for any of these industry partners. And then talking through all together, challenges that we see, keeping track of what problems people are having, how we can all sort of help each other out here, even traveling to local communities and talking to them about this. So it is a lot of process building, and we are sort of, working through this as the program is set up and running. And it's been awesome to have such great partners here with this program.
I'm actually want to invite the rest of you to kind of chime in here. I'm really curious about what these new approaches are. Like, can you share with us some examples of how you're seeing people from organizations and these communities actually come together? Okay, I'll call on you, Jason, to lead. But I'm eyeballing you and Joe and Jeff to follow up. So
yeah, and I think in the way we work, right? CrowdStrike is living at the endpoints or on the devices of these places where we're trying to help protect. So a lot of what we've been trying to do is support that conversation, make people feel comfortable with the idea of, I don't want to say giving control, but inviting a trusted partner into a place where they haven't been before. And that's an intensely personal conversation that occurs at all levels, from the highest in the state down to individual community leaders, right? And so when you have a product that's very sophisticated and powerful, and that could refer to any of the products here. I'm not just talking about CrowdStrike's products, right? We're doing interesting and complicated things. Coming together with the community and saying, here's what's actually happening. Here's how it's going to benefit you. and understand the trust relationship that we built at the higher levels is going to flow down to you. That's been a critical part of the business and also just the straight up personal strategy, right? It's a credibility thing as much as it is a business decision thing.
Well, I'd like to add, I think one of the approaches that we are taking, Joe and I at least, and then I've seen it from all the members of the products teams, and then that is, exactly as Jason said, getting down on an individual level. I meet with each and every grantee. We have conversations, we build a rapport, we build a relationship. I try to build a trust. I don't know, this is not a trusting face you can trust, but most of the time I don't turn on my camera, right? But that's it. It's all about the personal touch. It's building that relationship, building that trust, and just trying to be a trusted technical advisor, more than trying to throw a product into a spot and making it fit. It's architecting it, it's designing it for each and every organization's exacting needs, and I think all of us are doing that as well. And maybe Joe has some fun stuff to add.
I think everybody pretty much has covered it. I mean, the one thing that we are doing, and again, this goes back to Ryan, and we're doing these town hall things, right? We're going out to these communities. Ryan's going out, he's bringing out the team, and we're getting up and talking about what we all do as part of the program, and we were shaking hands with everybody. It's almost like a political campaign, to get everybody to trust the cyber grant program, which is great. As Jeff mentioned, we are having conversations, 2-3 conversations a day. And it runs the gamut from one IT person to 7 or 8 people on the call, just depending on the infrastructure, depth and knowledge and, budgets that these folks have. So again, it's a one-on-one, it's real conversations. Our approach has been lately is we don't really put up a PowerPoint or anything. We just have an open conversation. We get folks comfortable talking to us, really telling us what's their driver, what's their pain points. And then either, we can solve it. And if we can't, then we look and we help them with the research on how they can possibly go find that help somewhere else, outside of our organization. So that's kind of what we're doing.
I love the idea that, I'm hearing from each of you about how you're listening.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty incredible. And I was kind of describing earlier, it's hard to go from, hey, this is a good idea, to, okay, this is how we're going to actually put something together. So I'm curious, and this is a little bit off script, but I'm curious, who is in the room with you in like these road shows? What's the typical role that somebody has that's coming to you with this set of questions?
Yeah, I mean,
like who are we listening to?
So this is Joe. I can take that one. I mean, and then people can jump in, and Ryan can definitely speak to that. I mean, it runs the gamut. It's depending on, which part of the country you're in, or which part of the state we're in. So if it's a rural community, it could be the county's, CISO, or it could be, an IT director, or somebody who was just tasked with, hey, go find out what MFA is, and tell me all about it, right? They're doing some research. So it really, for us, it's across the board. It isn't one specific, I guess, title that we're, speaking with.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what Joe said, right? It's literally across the board. We're trying to get the word out to as many people as we possibly can, both on the IT and cyber side, but also on the business and executive sponsor side, because none of this stuff happens without the support of the people, the top levels of these organizations, right? And explaining to them how, one, we can support their business, maintain cyber safety and cybersecurity for their organization, and two, help save them some money, right? Because realistically, that's a big portion of this program, is let us take on these costs that, one, either you're paying way more money for these same services than we are, or two, you're not buying these things at all, but let us take this on so you can reinvest those funds somewhere else within your organization, solve other problems with those monies that we can help take that cost burden onto the state. And we've had, county supervisors show up to these events. We've had, as Joe mentioned, IT directors, county CISOs, city IT directors and CISOs. We've had line level staff, engineers and analysts that are interested in what these products can do for them. So it's completely run the gamut across the board. And it's been fantastic to get out and talk directly to people, go to where they live. And I kind of want to echo something that was brought up in a previous conversation, Donna, that you mentioned about the feeling of digital trust, right? That this is all about that feeling you get. And that's really hard to do when we're doing a video conference or a Zoom call with no cameras and it's just a phone call. But if I can go out and sit across the table from a county supervisor and talk to them about what our program is and how it can help them and what we're doing to try to provide for the entire state and why we're doing it, because that's the critically important piece, touching on that feeling of, okay, now I trust you because you're a real person, not just some random guy on a screen trying to tell me that I should be doing what the state wants us to do, right?
I'm also seeing here in the chat, Bradley, he's from Tanium. And so he's part of the ecosystem that you guys are working in. He's added in here the local to local relationships. So I just love this idea that in the communities, when you convene them, you're not only talking to executives and CISOs and a variety of folks who you really need some advocacy for, but it sounds like you're hitting at the heart of the folks who are going to be on the ground using those tools. And then from what Brad's describing here, these might be local folks who are adjacent and, frankly, neighbors of one another, fighting the same battles, but hadn't met before. So it sounds like you're able to leverage this to kind of create a whole new trusted community, even with local nodes. That's really cool.
And that's exactly one of the major benefits we're seeing. We were down in Yuma earlier this month, and the Yuma County CISO, his network manager, and a couple of other people basically came up and said, look, we work with these people. They're literally cities right next door to us. But we've never met them in person. We never talked to each other. We never had a reason to get together. You've brought us all together in this room, and now we're talking about all the same problems that we're having. We're now all talking about utilizing the same products, which we can now, I was going to point out the whole point of CrowdStrike, right, is the crowd piece of it. We're trying to crowdsource the heck out of this program so we can all help each other. We're all helping to put together and solve these problems across the state, put all the right people in the same room so we can all solve them together, as opposed to trying to fight these fires and these issues in individual silos. Saw a question from Dave. Yes, there is a website for our cyber readiness program. I will throw it in chat so you guys can check it out. If you are a local government entity, there's also an application form on there. It's really an interest form at this point. We're not doing formal applications. You sign up, you say you want the products. Until we run out of licenses, we will give them to you. So I'll throw that in chat here shortly.
And I think I can ask my team to grab it, and we've got other mechanisms we can use to help disseminate that too on our Slack channel and some of the after action stuff that we'll be sharing out. So that is fantastic. I'm kind of curious. Let's take for a minute an assumption that that we're establishing some new trust networks locally, and then we've got these really neat webs that we're building across regions that have similar things that they're trying to tackle. And we're doing it with, it sounds like you've set a suite of tools up that identify and kind of capture very specific sets of problems, common problems, but also distinct problems. So if you took that as a starting place and then we fast forward, how would you guys envision the future of that industry involvement from what seeds are starting to take root right now to where that might look like as an infrastructure moving forward?
Hitting spacebar and not unmuting myself. Good job. So I guess I'll take a initial stab at that question. And realistically, for me, I see the vision of this just expanding, right? This is only going to continue to get bigger. Government, we can't create these high-powered tools ourselves, right? We just don't have the capability. We don't have the staff and resources. And frankly, the taxpayers don't want to pay billions of dollars for us to completely reinvent the wheel that our industry partners are already doing, right? So we have to continue to work with them to provide these capabilities. But realistically, as you mentioned, this is only 5 services that we're providing. It doesn't cover all gaps. It doesn't solve all cyber problems. So we only need to push this to get bigger. So future state, I see this becoming much larger, fingers crossed, with the support of our executives and our legislature to provide the resources to make it go. Another big concern that we've really heard about this, and not necessarily from our current partners, but anytime we're working with our local entities, a big concern, especially when talking to big technology companies, is data. Can they touch my systems, and how are they using and sharing that information? I had a conversation with one of our state agencies recently that said, I would never use that company because they share all your data with their advertising partners, and they're selling your information all across the board. And just the misconceptions that are out there about how these products are utilized. And all of our partners will specifically say, like, we don't have access to your data. We can't see any of this stuff. We can't do any of that. So just letting that digital trust or that data trust understanding with how they're accessing this information or not accessing this information. And then the other piece of it is, what is the state doing with my data, right? Because we're talking to local communities that, they're their own entity. They don't necessarily want to be beholden to what the state is trying to do or trying to, access on their systems. How are we protecting their information? And now that we're doing this sort of statewide platform, what happens if one entity gets compromised or the state gets compromised? How are we protecting each of those individual entities from then being wrapped up in that? So I'd say those are big conversations that obviously we need to continue to have into the future. And fortunately, all of our partners are well aware of these concerns and are putting solutions forward that address them.
So I might open up that question a little bit and ask you guys, how do you, from each of the seats that you sit in, how do you see that future? And I want to pull on this thread of agency in the terms of having autonomy, having the ability to make your own set of decisions, just determine what you're going to disclose, for each of the different folks for whom institutions for whom you're able to offer an affordance they didn't have before. How do you at the same time create the possibility for them to have some, I'm going to use maybe the term self-sovereignty for how they approach that. So I'm curious to maybe solicit we've got a few more minutes left. I'm also watching for some questions. So if there are any more questions, toss them in the chat. But how do you guys see the future from the vendor side?
I'm happy to add a few points here. Yeah, I think Ryan hit a lot of the really important stuff and a lot of what we've already talked about around building trust and goodwill with these entities. I hope that the future looks like in other states, like what is happening here, and that vendors are building in specific pricing that makes this possible to do in other states, and that we're sort of replicating some of this process over. I also hope that we can make things more user-friendly for a lot of these entities. Obviously these are very complex products, but there is a lot that we can build in. From the Cloudflare perspective, we see DDoS attacks constantly. Very good theme this week if you've been reading the news. So there's a lot that we can do to sort of build that into the system and help you understand what's happening and why you don't necessarily have to spend all of your time and resources on something like that. So that's kind of where we're thinking about it, and just sharing intelligence between entities of what we see on the internet. And I think Jason wanted to add a bit more here.
Oh yeah, I've got so much to add to this. One thing that Ryan mentioned is kind of the opposite of what Chloe's mentioning, is that we also, as vendor partners, need to be mindful and design our products so that certain divisions of duties can be observed out of the box. This is an extremely complicated thing on the back end for all of us. And so partnering with large groups of individuals, hashing out those complicated requirements, and also being flexible at sort of the compliance level, right? we do this way. Can we possibly get some agreement across some divisions, departments, different units about that being an okay practice? What are our gaps? That kind of thing. So not exactly separating people from each other, but making sure that the right data is seen by the right people, especially when we are dealing with a very important security space across all of our products. So that's the really big follow-up to what Chloe was mentioning, and I think also helps support Ryan's point.
I love that. I'm really curious, Ryan, you put in the chat the term multi-tenancy, and I'm not sure if all of our audience knows what that means. You know, how would you just how would you describe to your grandmother what multi-tenants, what kind of architecture that is?
Sure. So I guess sort of just highlighting exactly what we just talked about, but you mentioned the concept of data sovereignty, right? So if we're having multiple people use the same platform to realize the economies of scale, the economies of infrastructure, the security protections across those platforms, we really need to be able to segment out each of those entities so they can't see each other, or that they have the choice to share what they want with each other, right? And that goes up and down the stack as well as east and west. They should be able to say whether I can see their stuff or if someone else on either side of them can see their stuff. And it's an opt-in choice versus a requirement to say just everyone has access to everything and we don't have a way to segment any of that out. Because quite frequently, counties will want to see the stuff of their individual departments, but certainly there's segmentation within that. Legal requirements to keep county attorneys' offices and sheriff's offices and public defenders' offices separate so they can't see each other's systems and data. Same thing across the board with other cities, with school districts, with other state agencies. It's no longer a nice to have when we're talking about these cloud-based platforms that we're all sharing with each other. This is a requirement that we have to have this as if we start realizing these opportunities and these technologies.
You know, I think
Well,
if I could add, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, no, I just thought, you know, you said, you know, dumb this down for my grandma, right? You know, and well, and you didn't say those words, right? I put
Yeah,
some
don't
of
tell
those,
her that's how I worded it.
God rest her soul. But you know, I think I would, you know, something that, you know, you can relate to, I think everyone can relate to, you know, this is an apartment complex, right? We are all sharing the same building, you know, the same digital infrastructure, right? We each have our little locked doors that we can go to inside of our doors, that inside of our apartment, in that apartment complex. This is our kingdom. I get to do my stuff in here. Someone next door might have an apartment, but I can't see inside of it. I do not have a key to that door. I can't get in, you know, so this is my own little fiefdom, my little apartment. You know, so to kind of you know, dumb it down, I would say, you know, this is like an apartment complex.